Meet Mackenzie and her grandfather Lou. They serve as volunteers for the citizen science project called the Florida Microplastic Awareness Project. They have been collecting water samples in various Florida tributaries, filtering them and looking for microplastics. They show us their method of collecting microplastics and how this data helps us understand more about the impacts of microplastics on our wildlife, environment, and our health.
There are plastics that are neutral buoyancy. We're just sampling the ones on the surface.
I see.
You want to try and wear cotton
Wear cotton? Okay.
because we're looking for microfibers.
So you might contaminate it yourself.
Yeah, so
I
you
see.
gotta be real careful. You don't leave stuff open. You try to wear cotton.
Starting with a sidearm Erlenmeyer flask, Mackenzie connects it to a simple hand pump, ensuring a good vacuum seal.
This part right here
Oh.
is gonna go into that, and it has this part on the bottom to make sure there's a nice vacuum. Pull everything through. We have 0.45 micron filters. They're very small, you can't even see the holes on these. So you're going to open this, and you usually use a pair of forceps to get the paper off. Usually pretty tedious. Get that off, and then you're going to pick this up and make sure that it's on there good. And then you're going to put this on. Always tighten it from the bottom instead of up here because you might crack the glass. So we're gonna make sure that's on there nice and tight, and yeah. Then pretty basic, but we got a paper clip here to make sure the vacuum doesn't pull the lid on top of it too tightly. So we're gonna pour a little bit of water in here. We're gonna start off pretty tiny just to make sure everything
Tell her
is.
about how we wait for a week usually.
Yeah, we usually wait for about a week to actually filter anything, so that it kind of settles, the sediment settles to the bottom, which will make filtering a lot easier. So we're just going to pump this until it starts filtering through. Usually takes a bit the first time.
So when you say wait a week, you mean like let this sit in the bottle for a week?
Yes,
Or I
you
see.
just let it sit so
I see.
everything will settle to the bottom.
That makes sense. Okay.
And then when we get right down to the bottom, it usually takes at least 2 filters. The first filter we do about 2/3 the liquid, and then we do about 1/3 of the other, what's left at the bottom. And you decant it very slow, and you're always going to leave a little bit of water in the container because it'll have a lot of sand and dirt.
I
And
see.
just plug up the filter. And
I was wondering how you get, what you did with the very end. Okay.
So after it gets going pretty well, we just kind of wait and let that filter, and we'll refill it. Generally, we fill all the way up to the top. We just wanted to make sure this sample would filter okay.
And you use the same filter for like that entire bottle? Or
yeah, except we do 2 filters per bottle.
Oh,
Because
okay.
the bottom part.
Like you said, it has a lot more sediment.
Yeah.
Oh, is this from?
Yeah, we're going to read these. You're going to have a chance to look.
Oh, very
Okay.
cool. Okay.
Let's just keep filtering that, kiddo.
Okay.
Maybe we can read part of this one too.
Okay. So, people don't get why it's such a big deal because they're like, oh, I don't see any plastic in the water. It's like, it's very well there, obviously, due to this project. But the reason why we're doing it is because plastic never decomposes. It just keeps getting smaller and smaller and smaller. So, sometimes fish and animals will mistake that as food, or it's so tiny that it's already in the food they're eating or in the water they're intaking.
Yeah.
So they're consuming that, and because it can't be decomposed, it's in their dietary or their systems and everything of the sort. So they're eating plastic and it's sitting in them. And also chemicals that are hydrophobic, which means they don't like the water, sometimes will grab onto that plastic, and when it's being consumed by the fish and everything, if they're highly contaminated, that can make them very sick. and sometimes kill them. And then a lot of times, especially in areas like this, where we are very popular for different kinds of seafood,
Exactly.
we're eating it, and we are most definitely consuming plastic. There's no telling if it's contaminated by chemicals or not. Some of it most likely is. So that's why it's very important for both our wildlife and our environment, and for us to be aware of this situation and find out how we can kind of limit it. It's very difficult to remove plastic out of the water without doing a filtering system like this, and you very well can't filter everything. You can just kind of limit the amount that's going into the water and take out bigger chunks before it breaks down too much. So
Well, this is obviously a crucial step. It's like just showing the real data.
what you will do whenever you find a fiber, like as you get better at it, you'll be able to distinguish between like plant fibers, maybe off of like grass or something, and something that is man-made or manufactured, like plastic or cotton. And you will grab that with the forceps, make sure you have a nice grip on it, and kind of hold it over the flame for a couple seconds. It's pretty small, so you won't be able to tell how much it's burned or what it is until you look at it under the microscope.
Oh, so it's not even, like how fast. It's like after you burn it and then you look at it and then you can
Yes.
determine.
Because
Wow.
with plastic it will melt, and with cotton it will burn, and a lot of times that will like break off when you look at it. Looks kind of charred, whereas with plastic it just looks like a little melted ball at the end.
So any kind of like plant fibers is same, like you said, like
It will
cotton.
burn.
I see.
Um,
Cool. Well, I'm just really curious, like how did you and Lou, like what drew you to this work? Because it's really important, but it's obviously like it takes patience and it's tedious at times and frustrating or challenging.
From like I've grown up in Florida. I've grown up in this area my whole life, and so since I was really little, always on the beach and in the pool and interested in animals and everything. So when I got the chance to join something like horseshoe crab, I was really interested in it. I'm striving to be a marine biologist through UNF, and just opportunities like this are a great way for me to get experience and volunteer hours, and also kind of learn about big issues such as horseshoe crab population or microplastics. So at each sampling site, it is going to be about 1 liter.
I see.
We switched from using these to using mason jars because it's a lot cheaper to acquire, and also they're glass and less likely to contaminate anything. And since we started doing like our filtering trips, because like I said earlier, we are filtering 3 different river systems now, the Nassau, the St. Mary's, and the Swanee. So having like 24 sampling bottles is a lot easier to make those trips and get things done a lot quicker than to have 6 bottles. A lot of times you will be filtering several samples at once. So in between samples, you want to make sure you rinse it very thoroughly. We have little squirt bottles. This is just filtered tap water.
Okay.
And between samples, we will rinse everything. So we'll swish this and whatnot to make sure there is nothing from previous samples or any leftover fibers still stuck in there. And also with the sidearm Erlenmeyer flask, after each sample, you want to empty it, because if you get it too full when you're pulling that vacuum, water's going to go in through your hose and
Good
get all
tips.
up in your pump and everything. So
Very good tips. Awesome. Thank you.
I can show you a couple things, but I'm not wanting to burn anything until we get back with the book so that I can record
That makes
it.
sense. Yeah.
Because these are from one of our last sampling trips that we did. But I just want to kind of give you an
Cool.
idea of what the fibers look like. So I'm going to try to find a
Yeah.
couple for you. I can get the tape off. Didn't want our filters flying all over the place.
Is this a pretty recent sample?
Yes, I can't tell specific date, probably like this last month,
Oh, okay.
because we've done the Swanee and the Nassau over this past month. So
Oh, that looks
um,
like pretty large. I don't know if that's a large, relatively speaking, but wow. Huh.
yeah, see if I can find a couple here. So sometimes they will get bent up like this, so you do need to change the focus quite frequently.
Mm-hmm.
Like you'll notice I always have my hand on this because I will have to change it. Because some of them are flat, but some of them are like pretty curled up.
Yeah.
So let's see if we can find something. Alright, here is a fiber. If you need to change this, the focus or anything, because everyone has different eyesight.
I might just lean over.
But I
you.
have it here, right on.
Oh yeah.
The long black one.
Yeah. Looks like a little piece
I
of
would try to grab
thread.
that with the forceps and burn it over the flame. Like I said, you don't have the book yet, so.
Oh wow, that's so. I can't even see it on the petri dish at all, but it looks like a piece of black thread through the microscope. Interesting.
Do they tend to look like the plastics tend to look kind of like string shaped? Or not necessarily, right? Could be beads or...
Yeah, generally it is the fibers that we're finding. But one way that I can kind of tell before burning it whether it's going to be natural or plastic is generally the plastic will have more of a sheen to it.
yeah.
Sometimes it'll curl a bit more or stick up, like seem stiffer than what the cotton would be.
But you still have to evaluate.
Well,
it with the flame.
I still
Yeah.
burn it, but
Yeah.
sometimes you can kind of like slightly tell what
No
it will be.
shortcuts.
No.
That's when you get in trouble.
Ew, I'm not sure.
Here, let's see it.
It's brown, or it looks brown.
Yes, that little squiggle there, that is.
Algae again, maybe?
Yeah.
Okay.
I hadn't read this one, I had just read the first one to kind of see if we had some fibers on there, but seems like we're not really finding too many.
Or I'm just not missing.
Well, sometimes, we're only finding like one or two usually,
Yeah.
sometimes none.
Sometimes you'll find a couple like natural fibers in there, but
So
not
it doesn't-
too
It
often.
doesn't mean you're not doing it right if you don't find anything. It just means there's nothing there, that's all.
No data is still data.
That's right. Very good.
That's a good thing to keep in mind, yeah, no data.
Because like sometimes with our
People don't realize that.
sometimes with like our horseshoe crab surveys, we wouldn't find any horseshoe crabs. It's still data. Like, okay, we know that on these days they prefer this kind of weather. No, we're good.
Well, you know what? This reminds me. I've been kind of going all over. I was trying to do a system. So you recommend row to row to row? Like
I
that?
usually do I started off, I used to read one row by one row, but then I got to the point where I could read 2 rows at a time.
Yeah, and I started that way and then I went away from that. Oh, so that's a good tip. Stay focused.
Because it's very easy to lose where you are,
Yeah,
especially if
totally.
you're burning things. And
It's on the screen
Oh.
somewhere.
because I'm so used to doing this on my account.
Oh, I didn't
No,
do that.
microplastic data. And I also moved over to using my other laptop.
Oh, I didn't
So
know
this is
that.
a page
Ah, I see. Cool.
right here.
Microplastic data submission. Okay.
We can do the one that we just filtered, or not filtered, looked at. So sample bottle number is 6. So, and then with this, you're gonna put in your date next. So 12/27. We got this back in December, so it's been a while. And then we got it at 9:20 p.m. or not p.m. a.m. Putting in the latitude and the longitude, it's very important to be very specific. Don't want to shortcut on any of that, and always make sure you have that negative in front of that longitude if it calls for it. So 35.8. So number of plastic fibers we found is 1. Natural fibers is 3, and then for the rest of it we didn't find anything. So I'm just gonna put in zeros. This is
Oh, this is the map.
And the pinpoints are color coordinated. So like the black ones are 0 plastic samples. The blue one is 1 to 5. plastic samples
Per
green
1,000
is 6 to
milliliter
10.
or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Per
Okay.
liter, yeah.
And per liter, so per sample size. So I'm gonna expand this some maybe.
Wow.
So like here we
Take
have
it up to Nassau County.
Nassau County.
A lot of this that you see in Nassau County, it's almost all our work.
Yeah. So we got a lot in there.
Some isn't, most of it is.
Oh my gosh. How in the world do you do this?
That's why she does this, that
Oh
part. I don't do it. I
my
don't try it.
Gosh.
Sometimes it'll even stick to the filter.
I
So-
just tore through the paper.
That's okay.